Prince Charles, who is, of course, the heir to the throne, the man who is likely to become the next king of this great nation of ours, was wandering around a sort of design centre the other day and decided that he quite liked this idea of putting a mask on a cow to stop it from emitting methane. My problem with it, Ross, and a very good morning to you, is I thought the mask was at the wrong end, wasn't it?
Well, I think cows emit methane from both ends, actually. I mean, most of it does come out the front end burping rather than farting. But I know my first reaction when I saw that was feel rather sorry for the cow, actually.
Yes.
Animals don't tend to like wearing stuff on their faces if they can help it. And I should think the first thing that they're going to do is try and scrape that thing off on a fence post.
Right.
And the fields will be left full of plastic masks. Which
even more full than they are now. Well, this is the point. I mean, this is supposed to be some kind of, new ideas for tackling climate change, as if we haven't got enough of them. We've got the Just Stop Oil crowd who've got a new idea for stopping climate change from damaging the planet, and that is to spray paint over a load of petrol pumps on the M25. So, I mean, these ideas are coming thick and fast. But, people have pointed out to me that a cow spends most of its day basically eating. Whether it's grass-fed or whether it's, fed with feed of some kind or another. It chews the cud. Its mouth is constantly moving. It's got 8 stomachs, I think it is. You can't really cover its face up, can you?
No, it's got to be able to eat and breathe. And, when the methane's emitting from the mouth, you can't sort of cover the whole thing, which is why this device is only really claimed to... capture 60% of the methane emitted to a cow's mouth and nothing out the rear end. But it seems to me it's tackling the whole problem the wrong way. I mean, if I was approaching that problem, I'd think, well, let's get cattle indoors. Well, increasing numbers of cattle are being bred indoors anyway, and in controlled environment, and capture the methane through the ventilation system and then use it as a fuel.
Yeah. Well, that would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Well, it would. I mean, methane is, it's a good fuel. It is the main constituent of natural gas. There's a company out in Denmark, I think it is, which has produced a tractor which runs entirely on methane. And, you can, farmers can get their fuel for free, essentially, from the decomposition of manure and from their cattle. But, if you get cattle in a controlled environment, big barn, we could be capturing,
Well, that's right. I mean, these are the kinds of ideas, in a way, Ross, that would, I think, get a lot of public support, rather than these kind of crazy net zero ideas where you put some kind of heat pump in your house, which requires you to have a big garden, quite a large garage, and a very, very big area to put all the sort of the bits and pieces that accompany it, and then only to discover later that it doesn't work very well, and you're feeling very cold and the water's not very hot.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole sort of backdrop of this is that the governments have set this self-imposed target of reaching net zero by 2050, and it's sort of forcing us into sort of dead-end technologies, which, if you allow them time, allow technology time to develop, the market can sort out the wheat from the chaff. But as soon as you put this sort of, rather harsh and impractical deadline of 2050, we're going to be forcing ourselves down all kind of blind alleyways which are extremely expensive and not very practical and so on. And you see, I mean, this was the cow mask came about as a sort of competition with the RCA. I mean, we get any number of these things, like battery planes is the natural thing. We've had these sort of demonstration aircraft which run on battery. Well, I mean, that's okay if you're running that sort of service up in the Orkneys where they fly from one island to another in about a minute. But
right.
If you want a transatlantic jet to fly, across the Atlantic entirely on batteries, you'd have to have a battery which weighed as much as the Eiffel Tower. And, of course, then you wouldn't get the plane off the ground.
Also, I'm not sure I'm that keen on being on a plane which could run out of juice, effectively. I mean, if you're in a plane which is powered by jet fuel, you know that you've got enough jet fuel to get to your destination. I mean, I don't think I've ever been on a plane, as some have, which has had to go round and round and round so often that it's actually going to run out of fuel. But, I mean, you could conceivably, if you're on an electric plane, run out of charge, couldn't you?
Well, you could run out of charge, you can run out of fuel in an ordinary plane, and planes have done that, of course. But no, I mean, it comes down to energy density. Jet fuel has an incredible amount of, store a lot of energy per kilogram. Lithium-ion battery, which is the best technology we have, and much so. So, it's these sort of... but, the backdrop is that we keep getting sort of, in our sort of desperation, governments are chucking money at all kinds of sort of developing all kinds of technologies. A few of them may turn out to be practical and affordable, but we're going to get an awful lot of trash out of this.
Yeah, but also because looking, and I know you're following what's going on both in Brussels and in other parts of Europe. Looking at what Europe has become, which is basically a kind of Russian-dependent group of countries in terms of Russian gas. Some countries are now paying in rubles for the gas, getting it. Some are refusing to do that, not getting it. The Germans still producing huge amounts of petrodollars, if you like, for what they're taking off of Moscow. So, I mean, energy has now almost become... I feel like I'm in some kind of Mad Max film, where energy has become, the growing currency of the world.
Well, I mean, the trouble is our energy policy for years and years has been sort of...
non-existent.
One thing, just cutting carbon emissions. And we totally forgot about energy security. We forgot about, the fact that Putin's Russia wasn't exactly a liberal democracy and we couldn't trust it. And so, we end up in this situation. And I mean, it's absolutely bizarre, even in January when... the threat of a Ukrainian invasion was already there. Germany turned off 3 of its remaining nuclear power stations and made itself even more reliant on Putin's gas right on the eve of this invasion. And I mean, they just haven't thought through the policy at all. No,
they absolutely haven't. And what about this whole kind of net zero complaint that people make, which is that we don't really want it. We somehow have to persuade Boris Johnson not to get involved in it, but we find that really hard to do.
Well, of course, Boris has undergone this sort of road to Damascus conversion. I mean, 8 years ago, he was writing about wind turbines being unable to pull the skin off a rice pudding, and he suddenly thinks we can power the entire country with wind turbines and nothing else. I mean, obviously the truth lies somewhere in between. I mean, wind turbines are a useful contribution to our energy mix, but we cannot rely on them because of their intermittent.
No, absolutely. Ross, listen, thank you very much indeed. We have to run, I'm afraid. Ross Clark, the leader writer for The Spectator and The Telegraph. This is talkTV.